Hi, I want to welcome everyone to our April 13th, 2023 Inspiring Author Conversations. I'm Cathy Davis, Davis Creative Publishing Partners. Today we'll be speaking with Lois Creamer. Book More Business, Grow Your Business with Speaking is our topic today. Before I welcome Lois, I just want to remind everybody of a few quick logistical details. The call is being recorded. You'll receive a link to the YouTube recording shortly thereafter the call, probably within 48 hours. We've muted ourselves and remind you that your chat button is down at the bottom of your screen. If you have any questions, please type it into the chat and I'll monitor that and make sure we get all the questions answered. I know we're going to have a lot of questions today, so I'm just going to cut to the chase. Lois, welcome. Thank you for being here. For those of you who do not know Lois, she's an industry expert. She works with speakers who want to book more business, make more money, and monetize their message. Clients include industry superstars as well as superstars of tomorrow. She presents at NSA, CAPS, PSA-UK, India, Ireland, and Scotland. She's the author of 2 books, Book More Business, Make Money Speaking, as well as co-author of the Speaker Author, Sell More Books, and Book More Speeches with Cathy Fyock. In addition, she's appeared in Forbes, the Wall Street Journal, Bloomberg Business, and Speaker Magazine. I am thrilled to welcome you today, Joanne. Joanne just is joining us. Sorry, I already missed your name, Lois. Thanks for being here.
Cathy, I'm flattered to be asked and always happy to be in your company, my friend.
Thank you. So I know a lot of our guests today are authors or people who help authors become published. So what is the connection between being an author and being a speaker?
There's a huge connection. And let me just say, I wish that I would have written a book long before I did. You know, to be a speaker, a consultant, you have to have expertise within a defined area, certain expertise. And the way to illustrate that expertise is to write, is to allow people to dip into your expertise through your writing. And that's exactly what I did. I remember, Cathy, I started out literally when I started my business in 1998, which sounds like 1898 when I say it now. But I sat down at my compact computer, everybody, and I wrote out, what do I have to share with professional speakers and industry experts? I had run a business for a professional speaker for a number of years. And I literally in Word wrote down everything, edited it, printed it at Kinko's and put it in a binder and sold it. And I made money with it. And finally, I got a book together, and my book I put together really based on the basis of my book was the blog that I had been writing for years. And I'm now doing a second edition of my Make Money Speaking book, and am including some of the newer blogs and adding some things like AI and things that are more current and not mentioned in my book. But I do think there's a direct correlation, especially if you're in the service industry. There's a direct correlation between letting people experience your expertise through writing that's incredibly important.
So you mentioned you took all your blogs and put them together. Was there a common thread between the blogs? How did you sort that out and know which ones to keep and which ones to let go?
Yeah, that's a great question. And really, Cathy, when I thought, well, I've got all these blogs, I'll just call the blogs chapters. How hard can this be? Till I realized that some of the blog posts that I had written years before were not evergreen at all. Plus, my blog posts are like 500 to 800 words. And in order to make a chapter, it can't be just dry. I like to add some stories from clients that I've worked with and to illustrate something. So I went through every blog post. What I did is I divided my book into sections like sales and marketing, presenting, leveraging, that kind of thing. And so I put them in, I put the different chapters in blocks, but I'll tell you that the format of my book, I totally stole. I was very lucky early in my business. I was giving a speech for National Speakers Association, and sitting in the front row was the vice president of Jack Canfield Enterprises, the chicken soup guy. And she heard me speak and went back and told Jack, we need to bring her in here to work with us on the speaking side of your business. So I got home from this conference and the phone rang, picked it up, and he said, my name is Jack Canfield. And I thought it was a friend punking me. Mercifully, I realized it was really him. About a month later, I was out in Santa Barbara working with him. And I said to him, look, I've got a daughter. I've been buying chicken soup books for years for her. It's about time some of your money came my way. But one of the things I loved about the chicken soup books were the short chapters, Cathy, the way you could pick it up, put it down, and not be lost. So really, that's how I wanted my book formatted. So I took the blog posts, I would add a story or an example, but that would be the chapter. They're very, very short. And I've gotten lots of compliments on the format of it. But that's how I came up with my format. And there's nothing better than looking at what you like and then ascertaining what you think your market would like.
How do you come up with content for your blog?
I come up with content. I come up with content by looking at the National Speakers Association Facebook and LinkedIn pages and see what people are talking about. Mm-hmm. What are they asking about? Typically, when I see a question, I'll go write a blog about it. But it lets me know what's going on in the industry. I also read a ridiculous amount about the industry. I get stuff in my inbox every day. And also my clients are great market intelligence for me to pass on to my other clients. So that's how I get my ideas. But it's really through what are people wanting to know about the industry? How has the industry changed? And we've had lots of change. We all have in life and in our work. And so that's what I like to address.
So once you had your books, a published book in hand, how did that transition you to getting more speaking engagements and getting paid speaking engagements?
Well, it certainly creates interest. And as I said before, the depth of your knowledge comes through in a book more than you're ever going to have time to do in a conversation, more than you're going to have time to do in a promo video. It allows you to go into depth. And the market for speakers, they want people with a depth of expertise, typically defined in a certain marketplace. And I have such a niche business. The only speaking I do now are to groups of professional speakers in the United States, around the world. I used to speak to corporate sales teams in the early 2000s. I don't do that anymore. I just don't want to travel as much anymore. But your book is actually, I use my book as a business card too. If somebody's thinking about working with me, there is nothing better than to hand them a book. In fact, Cathy, I tell people all the time, what you may want to do as you consider working with me is buy my book. If you like my book, you'll love working with me. I'm pretty direct. Cathy knows. I come from a point of view. I've been doing this 25 years. And there's a lot in this world I don't know. I know a good amount about speaking. So I come from a place of having an opinion and sharing it. I tell my clients, though, I realize that you live with the decisions you make for your business, and I move on to my next client. But I think a book is a terrific way to introduce yourself to someone. If you're interested in speaking, it allows them to really have an informed opinion and to really know what they're getting in advance.
Is there any advantage to being a speaker that has a book and being the one that gets picked? So let's say if a corporation is looking for a speaker to come into a conference and you happen to be the only one with a book, is that a pro, or does that work in your favor?
I think it's a big pro, in a couple of ways. I think it's a big pro. It shows that you, I think it illustrates your commitment to your area of expertise. Mm-hmm. I also know, and you know this, it can be a big income stream for speakers, consultants, and experts. I have a phrase that pays that I use all the time when I'm speaking to speakers. And as I'm speaking to you today, and this is the phrase, do you think it would make sense? And something that I say when somebody wants to bring me in is, do you think it would make sense for everybody to be able to walk out today with a companion book to my program?
Mhm.
That one sentence has made a lot of money for my clients. And it's done okay for me too, since I've had my books. But I think that being able to have something that you can offer, and even if your book isn't exactly about what you're going to speak on that day, it allows you to say, do you think it would make sense for your people to be able to read more on my expertise that I'll have time to share today? Or do you think it would make sense for people to read about this part of what I do if they're interested? And it does allow you to move some books. I'm a big believer for speakers of pre-selling books rather than selling them in the back of the room. That's kind of the fallback for me, but I'd much rather pre-sell books. And I think that if I have found that if you say, do you think it would make sense for everyone to be able to walk away with a companion book? That's a hard thing to say no to, because I'm going to give them a good discount for doing that.
Right.
It saves me time, it saves me effort, and it'll save them a bundle if they do it up front.
Well, and you bring up a really good point. And our services are fee-based, and a lot of our authors will say, okay, how can I recoup that expense? One of our authors actually sold 800 books to A.G. Edwards and at a reduced rate.
Yes.
And she still made $10 a piece on each of those books. And automatically she's recouped her expenses. Yeah.
Cathy, I will share with you, because I think this may be of interest to your group, and you may have heard this. Cathy's heard all my stories, I think. But years before I wrote Make Money Speaking, which is kind of my flagship book, I spoke in Las Vegas for National Speakers Association. I was approached after that meeting by a New York publishing house. And this representative said, wow, I want to talk to you afterwards about writing a book for us. Well, I don't know about you, but this doesn't happen to me every day. So I get a call in my office, and she said, we would love you to write a book. I loved your program. But I was talking with some of my colleagues, and I wonder if you could make it for service providers, people who provide a service. So I said, well, let me think about that. Going beyond speaking. So a couple of days later, I get a call. As I'm thinking about it, I get another call from her. And she said, I've been talking to more of my colleagues. We think it would be better if you wrote a book for small business on how to grow your business. And I said, let me think about that. And so I called her back and I said, you know what? I don't think we're going to work together, because small business people don't know me from anybody. I've got the nichest of business. The people who know me are speakers, consultants, and experts. I don't think I'll sell enough books to make you happy. And I don't want to go beyond my expert groups. And I got an email 10 minutes after I talked to her, Cathy, with one sentence in the email. She said, dear Lois, you're making a big mistake, and signed her name. And I knew then I had made the best decision that I had ever made. And I self-published this book. And I really thought this is going to be just a small niche book. It's going to have a limited shelf life. It's 5 years old now, which is why I'm writing a second edition. There has not been 1 month where I haven't gotten a royalty check. Now, they haven't all been huge, but it's fascinating. It's fascinating to me how this little book for a niche industry has done. I'm very proud of it, and it's done really well for me.
So how does one become an author with a book and a business? And how would I step into that speaker's world? What's one of the first steps that I could take?
The first step to jump into speaking is to have a great speech and the ability to deliver it in a really compelling way. And those can be two high hurdles for many people, Cathy, and not that high for many others. I always tell people who are interested in speaking, and I get approached a lot, to join a Toastmasters group, get some experience speaking in front of people. Then you have to develop a great speech. The key is this: you have to have a great speech in order to leverage each opportunity for the next. You will have a short shelf life as a speaker if your speech is not great. And, there are people you can hire. I don't do this, but there are people you can hire to help you write a speech. There have been books written about it. I don't do anything, by the way, about writing a speech, telling people what their expertise is, or helping them with presentation skills. You have to have all that before you work with me. When you have a good speech, and then come to me and I'll help you make money with it. But I don't help people design that. There are lots of terrific people out there. But those are the steps. It all begins with the speech. And then I remember when I first did my sales speaking for corporate sales teams, I spoke at every chamber. I live in St. Louis, at every chamber in the area. I mean, you would see me. Now, they didn't pay me. And they would usually give me 20 to 30 minutes. More important than money at that point was my getting testimonials from people who attended saying that I had great information that people should know. That was the economic capital that I needed early on. So once you have your speech, once you feel confident delivering it, you need to get out there and gain more confidence in front of groups. And I spoke at Lions clubs, Elks clubs. I said I did the animal circuit: elks, moose, lions, chambers. I spoke, if there was a bus stop with 3 people, I would stop and hop out and speak if they wanted me to. But I asked for testimonials all along the way. Then I posted those on a website, and an interesting phenomenon happened. People assumed I was paid for those. And I just started asking for money. And I mean, incredibly, people paid.
And that was going to be my next question, is how do you transition from being the free speaker into a paid speaker? And how do you know how to charge, what to charge?
Yeah, it's, I think one of the most challenging things in speaking is deciding what should I charge. And quite frankly, in a service business like speaking consulting, what should I charge? And the way you transition is just by asking for money. I am conservative when I work with clients, but here's the thing. It is now easier than it's ever been to do market intelligence on what people speak on, what topics they speak on, what they make, what their background and experience may be. You can go on websites like speakers.com, and you can check by area of expertise, topic, and see what people charge for a speech. I think that you need to compare yourself, your experience. You need to be very clear about what your expertise is and your ability. I would rather people start out at a conservative fee, because I say you can always go up. It'll hurt you to go down, but start asking for money. If people are pushing back, if I'm asking for $5,000 and people are pushing back, then I know that I might be a little bit high. I want to be in a place speaking where I'm not constantly having to lower my fee. And I remember a client I worked for years ago. I asked her fee, and she said, very confidently, she said, my fee is $3,500, pause, but I never get it. That was how she answered me. So I said, what do you get? She said, I get $2,500. And I said, I got news for you. $2,000 is your fee, and you're hurting yourself every time you claim it's more than that. The reality is that speaking fees are negotiable. Everything's a negotiation now. It's like, it's like a crazed crowd. Everything is negotiating. And so on occasion, my clients will get a certain money amount, a minimum amount, plus value. that they might ascertain, like video, referrals, the ability to purchase books, things like that. But I do think that it's a hard job sometimes deciding what you're going to ask. But if you don't put a number on it, somebody else will, and they'll undervalue you.
Mhm. I've heard you mention a phrase earlier. You mentioned evergreen content. Can you talk a little bit about that and how does that evolve? How do you create that?
Well, you know, first of all, I think it's hard in my industry to create it because things change so much. And Cathy, as I thought when I first started with this book, I thought intellectually using my blog, OMG, this is going to be so easy. And because everything changes. For example, in the second edition, I'm going to have a lot about virtual presentations. We weren't doing virtual presentations when I wrote my book. And so, you know, the word Zoom is not in my book. That's not a good sign for me. So I know I need to rewrite. Artificial intelligence is something that is changing the face of my market, your business, Cathy, all of our businesses. And though I'm going to be early in writing about it, it still has incredible opportunity. So looking at things and updating, I had to update almost everything I've read, except some of my certain sales and marketing principles that I use when I work with speakers.
And I've heard you talk about, if you use it in your blog, use it in social media, keep it flowing, keep it going out there.
Absolutely. You know, you have to remember, you're creating an impression every time you post something on social media, every time you send something to that email list of people who want to know what you're doing is an opportunity to create some kind of an impression of expertise. And you need to keep doing it. People need to know that you're out there, you're working. My clients need to know I'm out there, I'm working, I'm gathering market intelligence, I'm working on their behalf.
That's awesome. One of the other comments that I heard you mention earlier was niche market. You have a very finite niche market.
I do.
Talk a little bit about that and how that works in your favor for speakers.
You know, I like to tell the story to illustrate this, Cathy, about when I go to national meetings of NSA, National Speakers Association, or even our chapter. Cathy and I are very active in the St. Louis chapter of NSA. And I'm always approached by someone who says, you know, I've got this new program on customer service. I think it's going to be terrific. And I'll always say, where do you think it could make a difference? And lots of times I'm answered the same way. Anyone who wants to establish a great culture of service will love this program. And so my reply is, we'll go call everybody and see if they're interested. Sometimes the market is so huge that it's overwhelming. When we're overwhelmed, we opt to do nothing. Okay. So I suggest to my clients that you have a niche market. And for example, I say choose by industry. So in speaking, some of the industries that are popular for people are financial services, healthcare, retail, agriculture, manufacturing, industries like that. So if I picked financial services, that's the industry. Then I'm looking for specific markets within that industry, like banks, credit unions, mortgage houses, national associations that are connected with the three things that I just mentioned. And if you niche market, it gives you some parameters, it gives you a road to walk down as you're looking to make the best of your time marketing. And a lot of people think, well, if I do that, then I'm going to be so strapped into who I can present to or not. The reality is that in the speaking business, people, and I said this right at the beginning, Cathy, when we began talking, people are looking for a defined area of expertise in a defined market, and they'll pay more for it. So I think it just gives you some rules of the road if you pick a lane here. And I think it gives you parameters and a better understanding of how you can make the best use of your time. When I spoke on sales, I spoke in financial services. Every time I spoke for a bank, I would use that testimonial and leverage it to other banks. And people start thinking about you as an industry insider, and people pay more for industry insiders. So it's, you can look at your background. What do you have experience in? What market do you have experience in? Or you can say, who are really good audiences? As I've gone out and practiced what I want to do, who has been really receptive to my message? Who do I think is a good fit? And choose that. But I think when we say the world is our oyster, it's overwhelming. What do we just start with the A's? Google every company beginning with A. Or you can say financial service industry plus bank plus Midwest, and start from there.
Well, and if you look at it even from the perspective of the person wanting to hire a speaker to come in, they're looking for the expert.
Yes.
And as you narrow that niche down, it makes you more of that expert, is what I've noticed.
Absolutely right. And as I said, a lot of people think that I'm just limiting my opportunities, but it's much better to be an expert than just be a generalist in this business, because people are not interested in generalists. They want to know, people hire speakers to move the needle in their business in some way. When they bring me in, they're looking, what are my people going to be able to do differently as a result of sitting and listening to you?
Well, and it is a very scary step to say, okay, I'm going to narrow myself down to a small portion. But the amazing part is that once you do it, you'll more quickly see the results come.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right.
So can you tell us, not everybody knows you as well as perhaps myself or other people on the call. Can you tell us a little bit more about what it is that you do that helps speakers, trainers, coaches, and consultants?
Well, I help you make money with that speech, with your consulting package, and talk about some of the things that I know have historically worked for my clients. This is what 25 years later I can do. I've got a track record of knowing what works and what doesn't. And much of it came from my own experience. But I have consulting packages where people can hire me depending upon what they need. But I'm all about the business side of speaking. Mine is kind of the back end. How do I actually make money doing this? What are the things that I need to do to actually create a business around my expertise? And two of the things that we're talking about, I think, are incredibly important: having a great speech, and then having a book and some products. I think that the speaking industry, to go out and just give a speech, come home, get on another plane and speak, it's not a great way to make a living. If you've traveled lately at all, you'll probably agree with me. It's a hard way to make a living and not a good way. A great way to make a living speaking is having an area of expertise, speak on it, write on it, consult on it, create a course around it. That's the way. Have multiple income streams coming into your speaking business. But speaking allows you to grow your business, showcase your expertise in front of a lot of people, and allows you to pick up more speaking engagements if you resonate. So it's a great way to gather interest in what you're doing.
That's awesome. So I understand you have a gift for the guests today. Can you tell us about that?
I do. I have an ebook that I'm happy to share with you called How to Sell Speeches. For any of you who are interested, Cathy, I'll send it to you, and you can.
We'll make sure they get that link. Yeah.
Yeah, you can give the link out. And it's just some of the basics on approaching selling a speech. What should you be asking? How can you know whether you're a fit or not? How to bring up money, how to talk about money, things like this. So I'm happy to offer that to anyone interested.
Thank you so much for doing that. I want to remind everybody, because we have a fairly small group today, if you do have a question, just use your electronic hand, raise your hand, or use your actual real hand. I can see the whole group today. And Pam, can you unmute yourself? Thank you.
Hi, thank you. So Lois, you just said something. You said speak, write, there's another thing.
Speak, write, consult, create a course. I created a couple of years ago a private membership group that meets once a week. It's been the most fun addition to my business, by the way, in years. We meet once a week for an hour. I share some business advice, but I also bring in outside experts who have expertise I don't in the industry that my clients need to have. But I think the whole thing, Pam, is having a number of ways you put your intellectual property into the marketplace. And that's the business that we're in. If you speak, consult, or write, you're in the intellectual property business. And speaking is merely one of the vehicles that I use to drive my intellectual property into the marketplace. And then those other ways that I just said are additional revenue streams, but there are also other ways to reach people. We know now, especially coming out of COVID, we know that people like to learn in different ways. So I like to offer people different ways to learn.
Thank you.
Great question. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions that we want to make sure we get your questions answered. So the other thing that I wanted to mention was, as Lois mentioned earlier, we are members of NSA. You mentioned Toastmasters. Quite often NSA is the next step after Toastmasters. Can you say a little bit about how that works?
Yeah, Toastmasters, I think, is a terrific group. And Cathy, I have felt for years that every high school should have a Toastmasters group. This has been, and I told this to the guy who headed up Toastmasters at one of the NSA conventions. He got our influence award. And I said, man, I'd love to see in every high school kids getting comfortable in communicating and speaking. But once you have a speech, you've got to ask yourself, is this marketable? Are businesses, and I work with business speakers, are businesses willing to spend money on my expertise? And the way to do that is the internet. Go on, are there people being paid to speak about what you want to speak on? This is market intelligence. And as I said, it's so easy to do now. And for National Speakers Association, I think it's, if you're serious about speaking and want to make money doing it, that's the bridge to me between Toastmasters and NSA. It's how am I leveraging my speech to make money doing it? And I've been a member for ever and a day. And it's a great place. And Cathy will share too, I think, my feeling. It's really weird being in an association where people come and share what's worked for them and hope it works for you. I used to work for a Fortune 10 corporation in sales and marketing years ago, right out of college. And believe me, we never got together with other people in our industry and talked about what worked for us. But national speakers, I think, is the next step if you want to do this professionally. Also, it's a place where you're going to be surrounded by people who are doing this. I think it's good to be surrounded by people who are on a like journey. And you also align yourself with certain ethical business practices when you join NSA that I think are valuable. And I think the people who hire us want to know that we align ourselves with those values.
That's a great definition. Yeah, I know for those, if you are interested in NSA, and actually this is the first time I probably mentioned it in a long time on the call, but we meet the first Friday here in St. Louis. And I know like Joanne, you're out of Tampa, the Florida area, and you've been very active in the past in your NSA group down there. So they're all over the country. Just if you're not from St. Louis and you want information about it, just let me know. You've got my email and I'll help you track down someplace locally. But we meet the first Friday of every month here in St. Louis. And we also
have virtual meetings for people who, who want to join a specific chapter. We have virtual meetings.
I know we have a speakers academy. We typically did it in the fall, but we did a spring one this year. It's 6 different sessions twice a month for 3 months. And we have a woman from California that's chiming in every class.
Yep.
Because she wanted to be a part of this particular speakers academy. So it's a great group. We learn a lot. I learn a lot. I still feel like a sponge just sitting there taking in all the information.
Listen, I do too. I mean, I learn new things about my industry every time I work with somebody, Cathy. And it's one of the reasons why I really, I get to say I love what I do. I feel like I'm kind of on a lifelong learning path, and that makes it fun.
That's right. So as we start to wrap up here a little bit, oh, I see a hand raised. Good, Ricky?
Yeah, Lois, I've been interested in seeing some of the industry reports that you've been sending out quite recently.
Yep.
The thing I've noticed is that there seems to be a real reaction against virtual speaking within the meetings industry, and in some of them, saying, only 20% of people like. Is that in your experience, is that what's really happening? I just find it quite surprising because we've gained so much through the whole pandemic.
It's
I'm
a
now
great
in the Virtual
point.
Speakers Association, and it's.
I know. Listen, it's a great point. And virtual is here to stay. This is one of the, an incredibly sad COVID time where people experience so much loss. We actually gained something. I always like to think what good has come out of a situation like that. And presenting virtually for speakers kept us alive. The reality is, Ricky, first of all, thank you for reading those reports. Always good to know people are reading what you're writing. But I think this is just a reaction to the ability to get back in person. And so I don't think that this, I think it's kind of a pushback. And I think companies coming out of COVID were really wanting to get together for this, for the engagement. And now the workforce has changed. We've got people in office, people who are going to be working remotely all the time now or part-time. And I think that they were looking to get back in person just for the engagement and community of it all. I don't think virtual is going anywhere. I see it as still playing a big part. Something that is interesting, though, that I recently wrote about, and you may have read, is that there are a lot of national level associations who don't want to offer a hybrid model because of the expense. And it's very expensive offering a professional virtual experience for a large group. I can tell you this from National Speakers Association.
Well,
so it's not going anywhere, Ricky.
As you know, I'm the founder of the PSA in the UK,
Yes.
and they didn't have. I was amazed when Steve Bustin put together the first online convention. It was one of the best events I've ever attended in my life. We spent a whole week. I never left my dining room, but I felt as if I was somewhere else. But
Ricky,
I noticed when Dublin happened, there was nothing. Everything has to be in the room.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh no, we're not going to do any virtual. And I do understand that if you go hybrid, you end up with two. You have to have two tech teams, one for the in-house, one for the online, and they can't talk together because you end up with a lag between the two, and it's really complex.
And it's tough. And I presented for an NSA national meeting, and it was hybrid, and it's really hard concentrating on both when you're on the platform. Ricky, I will tell you that London meeting you're talking about, I was at a convention with Steve the year before COVID, the shutdown, and he invited me to speak at the convention. And I said, I will, but I only want to do it virtually. And he said, well, we don't do virtual. So I said, well, if that ever changes, let me know. I got a call from him and said, hey, the whole thing's virtual and we want you. So talk about timing, huh?
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. That's a great question, Ricky. Thank you for chiming in. We've got a couple coming up in the chat. Let's see, Joan, did you want to go live, Joan, or you want me to ask this for you?
I can go live. The topic I speak about is advanced care planning, completing a healthcare advance directive. And there is so much information on the topic that I get frustrated when I put my presentations together, because it's like, okay, so what am I going to talk about? Because there is a lot of information. And I know you can do two presentations, 1 and 2, but I would like to find someone that can help me streamline or help me decide on that.
Well, that certainly is not me. And no one is coming to my mind right now on that. But I'll tell you, one of the things I'd suggest you do, go to Chat GPT, which is one of the big new AI platforms. I've been using this. I've been having a lot of fun with it, and put in what is it that people want to know? First, you've got to put a prompt in. I would put right in a professional, inquisitive tone. What are the 5 things people want to know about end of life directives? See what they put out. And that might give you, and ask for a fixed number, like what are the 5 things, 6 things. And then that might give you some direction as far as creating a base program about this. And then as you do pre-work, I'm a big believer in doing pre-work anytime I speak. Are there any things that the person who's bringing you in want you to emphasize? Is it something that's not on that list of 5 things, Joan, that you could cover? And you might want to bump one of the things on the list and insert that. But back when I did sales programs, I offered, before I stopped doing that, I had one speech, Joan. It was fast forward selling. That's what I called it. Now, people can speak for days about sales. I asked in some pre-program work, a pre-program questionnaire that I used, why is it that we're talking? What's going on that makes you think that you need me? What part of the sales process do you think you need the most help in? And that's what I'll concentrate on. So I advertised that I would personalize it to what was going on in that specific company. And you might find that those answers could change, Joan, depending upon whether you're talking to groups of lawyers who can offer this, groups of social workers who can introduce this topic and want a working knowledge of it. It can change what kind of a level they want. So, I think I'd start out with saying, what do people really want to know about it? And I think Chat GPT is turning out to be a great platform for letting us know what people are looking for.
That is a great suggestion. Thank you.
You bet. You bet.
Any other questions? Tricia, thank you. Trish Hall is thanking you for being here, Lois. You're just a wealth of information.
Well, thank you. Cathy, I'm a fan of yours. We've known each other for a long time, and I was flattered when you wanted me to come, and it's been great seeing you all. Certainly reach out if I can answer a question or help you in any way.
Joanne, did you have a question? You're on mute. I can't hear you, sweetheart.
I was wondering how we can get in touch with Lois, Cathy. Maybe the 3 of us could talk. I have 100 ideas. I have 5 pages of notes already. So from just this.
We'll make sure that you get Lois's information, contact information in our follow-up email for
Super.
everybody, as well as her link to her gift, her ebook today. Any last minute questions before we hop off?
Well, when Joan was just talking about the questions, I also really recommend when you have a client, ask them if they've actually asked questions to their attendees that are going to participate, and ask what they're interested in. If they could do a survey or something, it just really helps you personalize and customize your message. And it's a true win-win because it shows you care. You pick out the parts because most of us, even though you have an area of expertise, there's different topics under the umbrella. And I just find that it's really valuable if you ask ahead of time what specifically they're looking for. And if they don't know, ask them to do the questionnaire to their audience.
Well, Joanne, what a radical and ridiculous idea to actually address what people want to know. How about that? And, this is part of what my pre-program questionnaire did. I would see what issues are you having that you want to deal with. Actually sending out a survey is also a great idea. Having them do a survey within their organization about,
Right.
If we were bringing someone in your area of expertise, what is it that you would want to be able to walk away with a working knowledge of? So I think it's a great idea.
Yeah. Trish, I saw that you were off mute. Did you have a question?
Oh, it more of a fun comment, because we're so used, I am not currently a member of NSA, and I totally agree with all of the endorsements that have been given. But we use NSA like we know, like the world knows what it is. But here in the Washington DC area, it's the national security.
That's right. In fact,
And
Trish,
so-
when I was in Washington, working with a client, we passed some directions to NSA, and I hopped out of the car and had them take a picture of me, the directions. Yeah, we have to make sure that we understand what we're talking about.
Common language is essential, and you're wonderful. And so thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah.
It
I
is
wanna-
fun to work with them on the other side too. We've actually been one of your NSA, what was it? I have a plaque somewhere that meeting planner of the year or something like that. So
Wonderful. Yeah, absolutely wonderful.
Terrific. Well, I'm so thrilled that you all could be here today. And Lois, thank you so much. I greatly appreciate you in so many ways. Thank you.
Thank you.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Thank you, everybody. Be watching for our follow-up email. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everybody.